What happens when two rival gangs join forces? You think they'd become unstoppable, but you'd be wrong. Sometimes it just makes them more likely to break each other's legs. Welcome to my channel. Today, we'll meet one of the most infamous mafias in history. The year is 1956, and it's a beautiful day in New York. Everyone is out celebrating because today is the day that mobsters Salvatore Bonanno and Rosalie Profaci get married. This isn't your typical mafioso wedding, where the bride wears white and the groom has a black suit. No, there are hundreds of men in attendance wearing expensive suits and brand new cars parked outside waiting for their owners to finish up the festivities. There are police officers outside making sure no one gets hurt. And inside, there are stacks of money sitting around so everyone can have a good time. For the mobsters, the wedding is important because it signifies that two of the most powerful crime families in New York are joining forces, the Bonannos and the Profacis. In the coming years, they will form an alliance that will make them nearly invincible in the city. No one would dare oppose them. For 8 long years, they rule over New York with an iron fist, and things are looking great for them. But all of a sudden, everything changes. In 1964, Larry Gallo was summoned to a meeting at the Sahara Club. He's been called there by his friends, Carmine Persico and Joseph Joe Iacovelli, who are members of the Colombo crime family. When he gets to the club, however, he sees something that makes him angry. On the table sits a copy of Life magazine with a picture of him on the cover. It's an article about the upcoming trial of Joe Bari, a capo regime or captain in the Genovese crime family. Galloway is furious when he learns that the meeting was set up by Persico and Iacovelli, who had Bari killed to take his place in the family. They intended to use the Life magazine cover story as an excuse for Barris's disappearance. He was going to testify against them in court, so they took matters into their own hands. Gallo walks out of the meeting angrily and drives home, but he knows this is just the beginning of a long and violent feud. Gallo calls his brother, Jerry, and tells him what happened. Together, they come up with a plan to get back at those responsible. The next day, Gallo goes to see Joseph Barbera, the boss of the Bonanno crime family. He explains what happened to him and asks for support. Barbera agrees and orders 5 men to be brought before him. They are the ones who tried to kill Gallo. When the men arrive, Gallo identifies them and the order is given to waste them. They are taken out and shot in cold blood. Gallo's retaliation sends shockwaves through the city. The Profaci family, led by boss Joseph Joe Colombo, is furious and vows revenge. This feud will become known as the First Colombo War. It started as a turf war over control of illegal activities in the city, but soon became personal when Larry Gallo labeled Carmine Persico, the snake, for betraying him. Let's find out why. There were 2 powerful Italian-American mafias operating in New York City during the mid-20th century. One was the Bonanno crime family, founded by Sicilian mafioso Charles Bonanno in the early 1900s. The other was the Colombo crime family, founded by Giuseppe Colombo, also known as Joe the Boss. Around the same time, both families specialized in extortion, gambling, and narcotics trafficking. They grew steadily over the decades and eventually became so powerful that they could influence politics and business. By the late 1950s, both families had bosses who wanted to expand their criminal empires. Carmine Persico, a member of the Colombo family, wanted to take over as boss, but he needed allies. He found them in the Bonanno family, specifically in the person of its boss, Joseph Barbera. Their partnership gave them more power than ever before and made them virtually untouchable. Even the police were afraid to mess with them, but this power came at a cost. As any mafia expert will tell you, loyalty is not a strong suit among mobsters, and soon enough, cracks began to appear in the alliance between the Colombo and Bonanno families. It all started with Larry Gallo, a hot-headed young mafioso from Brooklyn who was close to both bosses. He was like a younger brother to Persico, and often acted as his eyes and ears on the street. But Gallo was also ambitious and wanted more power for himself. He felt that Persico had betrayed him and joined forces with the enemy. And to make matters worse, he wasn't even invited to the wedding. When Gallo learned about the plot to kill Bari, he decided to take action. He went straight to the boss of the Bonanno family, Joseph Barbera, and told him what happened. Barbera was furious and wasted no time in retaliating against the Colombo family. The 5 men who tried to kill Gallo were wasted, and soon word got back to Persico. He was furious and immediately called a meeting with his top men to plan their next move. Among those present at the meeting was Gallo's brother, Jerry. He was a made man in the Colombo family and one of the most trusted men of Persico. But Jerry had a secret. He was also working as an informant for the FBI and had been feeding information to the bureau about his family for years. What he did not know was that Gallo had also been tipped off by the FBI about the plan to kill Barry, and he used that information to save himself. Now, as Jerry sat in that meeting plotting revenge against the Bonanno family, he was being watched. Gallo had planted a bug in the room, and every word that was spoken inside was being recorded by the FBI. When the meeting was over, Gallo went straight to the police and gave them the information he had gathered. Soon enough, the FBI was able to arrest several members of the Colombo family, including Joseph Iacovelli, who was suspected of ordering Barry's murder. This was a major blow to the Colombo family, and Persico was furious. He blamed Gallo for everything that had happened and vowed revenge. The first Colombo War had begun. For the next 2 years, the streets of New York were a war zone. Members of both families were gunned down in broad daylight, and even innocent bystanders were caught in the crossfire. The violence was so intense that it made headlines around the world. People couldn't believe that something like this could be happening in a civilized society. In the end, 9 people were confirmed dead and 3 missing. But the real number may never be known. Many of the attacks were carried out by hitmen who never left witnesses alive. It was a brutal and efficient way of dealing with enemies, and it worked. Within months, the Colombo family was on the run. Gallo's actions had paid off. He had taken down his enemies and saved his own life. Or had he? The truth was that Gallo had been set up by the FBI. They had fed him information about the plot to kill Barry in order to get close to Jerry. Once they had what they needed from Jerry, they wasted no time in turning on him. Gallo was arrested and sent to prison, where he spent the rest of his life. As for Jerry, he disappeared without a trace. Some say he was wasted by his own family. Others say he skipped town and lived out the rest of his days in some cheap motel. The truth is, no one knows what happened to him. So who really won the first Colombo War? The FBI did. They had manipulated 2 powerful crime families against each other, and in the end, they had both of them exactly where they wanted them. The cops had broken the back of the Colombo crime family and dealt a crippling blow to the Bonannos. It was a major victory for law enforcement, and one that would have far-reaching consequences. This was the first time that the FBI had ever taken on the Mafia and won. It sent a message to criminals everywhere that the jig was up. The good old boys club was over, and the FBI meant business. That's why if you look at the statistics, you'll see that the arrests and convictions of mobsters have skyrocketed since the 1960s. The FBI had found a winning formula, and they weren't about to stop anytime soon. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe.